So I don't know if you have ever tried to search for foster care adoption agencies in your area, but if you have, oh my goodness, why is it so hard? As an adoption consultant, I can't even tell you how many times my clients have come to me saying, I cannot find a foster care adoption agency anywhere. And believe me, I get it. While I eventually can find them one, it's really understandable why they couldn't find one to begin with. So today we're going to talk about why is it so hard to find these adoption agencies and what are some things you can do to make it a little bit easier on yourself. Hey, welcome back to my channel. If you're one of my loyal subscribers, I appreciate you so much for being here. And if you're new here, my name is Katie and I'm an adoption consultant who helps families adopt waiting children from foster care. I do that by providing videos like this on my YouTube channel. I also provide consultation calls that are available on my website. My husband Nick and I adopted our 3 awesome kids from foster care, and now I'm on a mission to help you do the same. Really, I try to give as much free information away as I can, which is why I make weekly videos here, and also why I have a new freebie for you. Now, if you haven't checked out my old freebie, which is the quiz about how to find out if you're really ready to adopt, which a lot of you have loved, I've gotten such great feedback on. Well, now I have one specifically for if you're looking for an agency. I created a worksheet that has 10 questions you should be asking every adoption agency you talk to decide if they are going to be a good fit or not. So if you haven't downloaded that yet, please do. I have it in the description box below. It is 100% free, my gift to you so that you can find an agency more easily. But let's talk first of all about why it is so hard to find an agency. I mean, seriously, full disclosure, the way we chose our agency was by a personal recommendation from a friend who had used that agency. I am almost positive, almost completely positive, I would not have found that agency if I didn't hear about it word of mouth. The reason why? I didn't know what I was looking for. And these agencies' websites do not make that very easy to do. Reason number 1 why it is so hard to find an adoption agency is that, first of all, you're going to have to search through so many listings on Google that have nothing to do with adopting a child from foster care. So if you type in foster care adoption agencies near me, what you will find is a few things. First of all, you will most likely find the most of infant adoption agencies, which is a very different thing. That is a very expensive process to go through. It is pretty much nothing like adopting from foster care, but it can actually be kind of hard to tell when you're first looking through that it's not the right type of adoption agency for you. And there are a lot more infant adoption agencies than there are foster care adoption agencies. I would imagine that's because a lot of people want to adopt infants and there's not as many people who want to adopt older kids from foster care, but for whatever reason, there are so many. What you might also run across are some agencies that look like they do foster care adoption, but what they really do is they only provide home studies. And so what this means is they're not a child placement agency. That is the key term you want to look for when you're looking through these websites, is they need to be a child placement agency. And so you'll find these people who provide home studies, but they are not actually licensed or accredited or whatever to actually place you with a match of a child from foster care. And the problem is if you start out with one of these home study providers, what you might find is that later your only option potentially is to use the county or the state to adopt rather than being able to transfer that over to a private agency. So I personally do not recommend using home study providers when you are trying to adopt from foster care. I think that can be a good option for people who want to adopt infants, but in this case, that is not. If you want to do domestic infant adoption, which is like a private process, sure, you could use that. But if you're trying to adopt from foster care, it's just not a great move. And then another type of agency you're going to have to sort through is foster care only agencies. Now, I will say that these have a little bit more promise to them. I have worked with clients who have found foster care agencies where nowhere on the website does it mention adopting from foster care, nowhere does it mention an adoptive program. But when you contact these agencies, sometimes, occasionally, they do offer that, but they don't advertise it. So if you find an agency like that, it's still good to write it down on your list and to say, okay, I'm gonna at least follow up with them and ask them some questions. But it's not as ideal as if you found one that actually mentioned foster to adopt, or which I don't love that term because that's not really what it is, or like waiting child adoptions. The last type of listing you'll have to sort through, which honestly is like funny in a really frustrating way, is you might find dog adoption or cat adoption, and not agencies, but like organizations that do like dog or cat fostering or adopting. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to like add a child to my life and care for a child, and I'm finding stuff about dogs and cats. So that could be a little frustrating, but it's funny how often those things pop up in my searches when I'm looking for clients. So just know you'll probably find stuff like that too. Reason number 2 why it is so hard to find a foster care adoption agency is because their websites are absolutely horrible. Like, who makes these things? Who makes their websites? I get that they don't have huge budgets for that, and I actually respect that they're putting their money towards other things, but come on, like, I am a solo entrepreneur. Like, I have my own website that I made all by myself. There are programs where you can do it. I have no coding experience. I can't do anything like that, but I was able to build one that I feel is pretty clear. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I have my website always in the bottom here in case anyone wants to book a consultation. But I feel like in this day and age, it is pretty easy to make a website that is good. It's called like Wix or Squarespace or Weebly or something like that, where you just drag and drop and you build your own website. But no, for some of these people, their websites are either super outdated or they don't put the right information, where there have been times I've gone to a website that is for a adoption agency from foster care, and I cannot tell for the first 3 minutes or so I'm on that website that that's actually what they do, because it says nothing about that on the front page. It says some like vague phrase that makes no sense, that isn't really clear what services they offer. So their websites are horrible. And like I said, I'm no graphic designer or website builder, but I've had to do both for my own business, and I'm kind of like, they need help. I've honestly thought about starting another business where I just help them make their websites better so that you can like make it easier for you guys to search, but I don't think I have time for it. So yeah, basically their websites are usually pretty garbage. They're pretty hard to navigate. It's really hard to understand even what they do. So that can be a really frustrating part, is because once you find an agency, you're like, okay, I think this is an adoption agency. Then you have to explore the website for quite a while to figure out what they really do. So yeah, not the greatest. The third reason why this is so difficult to find an adoption agency is that even if you do find a website and you can tell that it is a website that does foster to adopt, oftentimes what you'll find is that there's outdated information on their website. And so I have had this happen a few times where I have found an agency that online looks great for adopting from foster care, and they look like they have this really robust program and it's doing really well. And then you contact them and they're like, oh yeah, we've paused that program. We're not doing it right now. And you're like, could you put it on your website? A lot of agencies are really desperate for foster parents right now. And that's why I will say, if you have it on your heart at all to foster rather than to adopt, do it. Like, we need good foster families. But if what you really want to do is adopt, you need to find an adoption agency. And so it can be hard when their website's not up to date, that they don't offer that service anymore, or that they've switched what they're doing, or they've paused it for now while they recruit more foster parents. So just know that can be a little frustrating when you're taking the time to reach out to these people and then it's a dead end when you thought it was going to be something promising. And the last reason why it can be really hard to find a foster care adoption agency, especially private ones, is that in some states, they're just not really a thing. I was actually recently working with a couple from Indiana, and we realized that outside of about maybe one agency, almost everyone uses the Indiana Adoption Program, which is a state-run agency. And so there aren't even really options for private agencies. And so in that case, that really limits your search and narrows it down. Now, the one positive of that is that you no longer have to make a decision. You have one option basically. And so that can make it easier, but also it can be a little frustrating when you're searching for agencies and you're like, there are really none. I will say that is the only state where I have looked where there are just no agencies. So I thought that was a little bit interesting. So I wouldn't expect that with most places, but it could happen. So as you can see, there's a variety of reasons why finding a foster care adoption agency can be really challenging. And so I understand that challenge. I know it can be really frustrating. And like I said, I don't know if I would have found our agency if I didn't know someone who had used them. And that makes me sad to think about. Like, if I didn't have the tools and resources to actually find this, we might have gone a completely different route. And that's just kind of weird to think about. So that is why it is my goal now to help you find an agency more easily. If you want to just make me do the work for you, just go ahead and book a consultation with me, and I will find a whole list of agencies in your area that I think look promising that you can connect with. But if you're more of a DIY gal like me, I'm more of a DIY person, you can check out that freebie. Once again, it's in the description box below. And that will help you start to ask the right questions to adoption agencies. And it's just a worksheet you can print out at home. And as you start to connect with these agencies, you can ask them the important questions. Also, very, very soon, I am releasing my very first ever workbook, which is all about helping you find an agency. And this is not going to be fluff. This is very much how to search, how to find someone, and at the end, I want you to have an agency that you are working with. So you're gonna go from the beginning, not having any clue what agency to work with, to at the end, having decided on an agency that you can use. So keep your eyes out for that because it is coming very soon this month. And the freebie I'm giving you is actually a super small portion of that workbook. I just wanted to share with you ahead of time. But I actually walk you through my exact process of what to search, how to search, and where to search for these foster care adoption agencies. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Next week, we'll have another video all about how to find the right foster care adoption agency. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you next week.